Okay, hello, good midday or good afternoon. Today is Friday, 25th of February. I am replacing Eric today, so Eric is traveling with the president, so I will be chairing this midday briefing. I will make a couple of announcements as we usually do at the start. But first, let me say a few words about what is going on right now, because we are living exceptional times when war was brought back to Europe. And in this moment, at this first midday, actually, after the brutal invasion of Ukraine, I would like to, in the name of all my colleagues, appreciate the bravery of all Ukrainian, international, and Russian journalists, both in Ukraine and in Russia. Those in Ukraine, they are working under war conditions, and those in Russia, they are working under warlike censorship. So we really salute them. We also appreciate the bravery and sacrifice of Ukrainian people in these hours. We are with you, Ukrainian people. We are with you against the aggressors and occupiers. And I say this also in Ukrainian. My z Ukrajinою protiv agresori i okupantів. My цінуємо хоробість і самопожертву українського народу. And we also want to pay tribute to the thousands of brave Russian citizens, women and men who took to the streets in dozens of cities of the Russian Federation yesterday, today, and maybe also over the next few days, if possible, to calmly express their opposition against the aggressive war against their brotherly nation in Ukraine, and to express their support for peace. To these brave Russian citizens, I would like to say, we know that the Kremlin is not Russia. We know that Putin is not the Russian people. And I will say it also in Russian. My знаємо, что Кремль – это не Россия. Путин – это не российский народ. И мы ценим ваше мужество. So with this, I will go to our usual announcements. President von der Leyen, as you have seen, is currently in Warsaw, where she will participate today in the meeting of Bucharest 9 summit hosted by the presidents of Poland and Romania to discuss the current war in Ukraine and security situation in Europe in the wake of Russia's invasion. This afternoon, the President will also take part in the special NATO summit convened this afternoon by Secretary General of the NATO Stoltenberg. The President will participate via video conference. Let me also mention that this afternoon, High Representative Josep Borrell has called for extraordinary FAC meeting of foreign ministers. It will be formal in person here in Brussels starting in the afternoon. They will discuss, of course, the repercussions of the war against Ukraine, the follow-up to the decisions by the European Council, and the continued diplomatic efforts in this context. Press conference is planned for late afternoon, around 5, maybe 5:30. So we will invite you to follow the press conference, and obviously the questions which will be related to the FAC we will not be taking now at midday, but we will be referring them to the press conference after the FAC. Et puis, nous avons aussi un autre annoncement en français. Je voudrais également mentionner que le vice-président exécutif Valdis Dombrovskis et le commissaire Gentiloni McGuinness représentant la Commission à la réunion informelle des ministres des Finances et de l'Économie aujourd'hui, qui a commencé ce matin déjà, en formation Eurogroup. Sur l'agenda de ces réunions figure notamment le dernier développement macroéconomique, une session spéciale sur la situation en Ukraine et une conférence de presse avec le vice-président exécutif Dombrovskis aura lieu vers 15 heures cet après-midi. Donc je vous invite à réserver vos questions sur le sujet économique aussi pour cette conférence de presse. Et avec ceci, nous pouvons passer à vos questions en anglais et en français sur tous les sujets qui sont dans votre conscience. Allez. No one in the... Okay, let's go then, please.
Oui, bonjour, Anne-Laure Désert de l'agence France Presse. J'avais une question pour Anita, je pense, sur est-ce que vous avez une estimation du nombre de déplacés et du nombre de réfugiés en Ukraine qui sont arrivés dans les pays de l'UE? Merci. Et est-ce que vous pouvez détailler un peu les plans de contingence qui sont préparés pour eux? Merci.
Merci. Question pour Anita qui est connectée via Interact. Ah, Anita ici. Anita, allez.
Oui. Can I answer?
It's
Yeah.
on.
All right. Oui, bonjour. Merci beaucoup pour la question. La Commission est prête à aider ses États membres à offrir un refuge aux citoyens ukrainiens. Et l'Union européenne a élaboré un plan d'urgence global pour faire face à l'agression russe qui inclut la protection du peuple ukrainien. Maintenant, je n'aimerais pas spéculer pour les chiffres, mais on voit qu'il y a d'arrivées à la frontière et on surveille de très proche cette situation qui évolue constamment.
Merci Anita. Il y a des follow-up? Ah, vous avez follow-up pour Anita?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Gianluca Martucci, Totally Production, Italian Multimedia News Agency. I just wanted to ask if after the visit of Commissioner Johansson in Poland, officially the aim of this visit was to investigate the possible scenarios of a refugee emergency. Do you have something to share with us on this visit? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Commissioner Johansson has been in Poland and has discussed with the Deputy Minister of Interior the situation and the contingency planning. Poland is fully prepared, and the Commission is also very much supportive of all the efforts and ready to send any support is needed. So this has been also discussed, the contingency preparedness and the plans to welcome potential Ukrainian refugees.
Thank you. Any more follow-up? Okay, so we take a follow-up here from the room. Angela, right?
Thanks, Peter. Good morning. Is there any intention to hold special meetings by leaders or ministers with the Johansson Commission and everything on this aspect of the war, of the crisis? Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Johansson and also the services level. So we are in close cooperation with and contact with the political authorities at all levels, indeed. So this is a constant matter upon which we are working day and night.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any follow-up question here in the room, and before going to interact to questions from colleagues who are connected remotely, let me also share an information with you that in case you would want to ask about the unprecedented sanctions package, which was adopted or which was agreed last night by the leaders of the European Union, immediately after this midday briefing, we will organize a technical briefing for you about the sanctions package. And there you will be provided more technical details about it. So in case you have questions on these sanctions, then we can also tackle them in more detail in this technical briefing. Okay, I see that there are few hands raised. I mean, the first one was Stefan Israel, but I'm not sure, Stefan, if you want to ask about the refugees or the refugee aspect of the Ukrainian crisis, but go ahead, we will see.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yo.
Okay, it works on this. Yes, it's actually on sanctions.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, the president said that she coordinated with a lot of third countries concerning sanctions against Russia. She didn't mention Switzerland, and we see now that Switzerland is actually not taking over the sanctions that, or only partially the sanctions that EU has decided. So if you have a reaction on that, that would be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what we were doing and what we are doing is a very wide and very intense coordination with international partners, with our allies, with like-minded partners. You've seen already, apart from the countries the President mentioned or the High Representative mentioned, or countries who made their own announcements that they are going to align with those sanctions or introduce similar sanctions or their own sanctions. So there is a huge international community being formed, the community which is standing up in support of Ukraine, in defense of freedom, international rules, and democracy. That's one thing. The second thing, when the European Union adopts sanctions in general, anytime about anything, the countries which are associated in one way or another with the European Union, be it the framework of the Eastern Neighborhood or Western Balkans in the accession process, or countries of the European Economic Area, they are given the chance to align. This latest sanctions package, and now this is more about procedures, has been agreed by the leaders last night, but it still needs to be formally adopted in the appropriate procedures. After that has been done, then the countries will be, of course, invited to align or introduce their own sanctions similar to these as we have done. What we are trying to convey to each partner of the European Union is that Russia made a mockery of international rules. Russia showed the attempt, discontent and contempt and disregard for United Nations, for the Charter of the United Nations. And the civilized democratic world has to stand up to this threat, to this challenge, to the biggest threat since the Second World War. This is the biggest threat to European security and stability since the end of the Second World War. And it affects not only Ukraine, it affects Europe. And it doesn't mean European Union, it affects Europe. Switzerland is part of Europe. So we expect our partners, our neighbors, our ally to follow suit in standing up for defending the principles on which our communities and our countries are based. And among those principles are respect for international rules, protection of democracy, and solidarity. And this is our message to our partners in Switzerland and also in other countries who are considering whether they will be joining these sanctions or not. Okay, I guess next question on this, Nikolai Nielsen.
Yes, hi, thank you. Actually, it was on refugees, if I may go back to that subject. I was wondering if the Commission has any plans to trigger the 2001 EU Directive on Temporary Protection. Are you working on any proposals based on this directive in the context of Ukraine? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Nikolai. As regards the temporary protection directive, first of all, let me reiterate that the European Union is an area of protection for people fleeing persecution or serious harm in their countries of origin. And I do not have a full confirmation on this specific point, but of course we work on all scenarios to support the Ukrainian people.
Thank you. We have also David Careta, who wants to ask about refugees.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you and good morning, good afternoon. Two questions, in fact. The first one, the French Interior Minister just announced a meeting an informal meeting for this weekend on this issue. Are you aware of that? Since you have mentioned contact at political level, but you didn't confirm that meeting when my colleague Angela asked you on that. Second question, it's a bit of, I'm late, but I was not allowed to ask the question 2 days ago. It's on the statement by Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, who have warned of increasing violence and human rights violation at European borders. The statement is very strong since it affects also EU law, and you are the guardian of the treaties. Do you have anything to say to those, to the accusation made by Filippo Grandi? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Yes, we have seen, at least myself personally now, the declaration of the French Minister of Interior on the JHA Council and the meeting, but I do not have more elements to inform or confirm this point. So I will need to come back to you once this is fully confirmed with us. On the second point, as regards UNHCR, you know very well that our position is very strong on this matter. We condemn any violence, any human rights violation, and also on pushback. So there is nothing new that I can add to this, rather than to reiterate our position on this.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any more questions for Anita, colleagues, on Interactio? If you don't have questions for Anita on this refugee aspects, please unraise your hand. Okay, David, come on for the follow-up. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Peter, for the follow-up. Anita, you always condemn, but then when facts on the ground demonstrate that the Greek authorities are putting people in the water and people die, has happened according to even to the statement of Filippo Grandi, you do nothing, except asking clarification and so on, and waiting the time necessary for us to forget the incident. So, will you do something for migrants and refugees that come from Africa, Middle East, that are black, Muslim, and not just white people coming from Ukraine? Thank you very much.
David, thank you. I think our position is very clear on this. Efficient border management must be firmly rooted in the respect of human dignity and the principle of non-refoulement. National authorities, as we said before, have the responsibility to investigate all reports of pushbacks and mistreatment. I can tell you that on our side we have raised the reports, the concerns on all levels, both political and technical. As you also know, we have a pact on migration and asylum on the table, where the Commission has also proposed to strengthen the monitoring of the respect of fundamental rights. And in line with the EU law, member states must carry the border controls in a way in which they uphold fundamental rights.
Thank you. I agree with Oliver's remark in the chat for colleagues in the Interactio. So, I mean, if we can, let's keep this short so that we can start the technical briefing. I think the most substance you are waiting for is right there. So let's see if there are any more questions for Anita. I see that Leo is indicating a question. Leo Alizi?
Oui, bonjour, je ne sais pas si vous pouvez m'entendre. Léo Littewood pour Contexte. J'avais une question. Vous avez mentionné très rapidement la réunion informelle des ministres de l'Intérieur ce week-end. Sans plus d'informations toutefois, est-ce que vous avez des informations sur un éventuel changement d'agenda au sujet du pacte sur la migration et l'asile au regard de la crise sur les réfugiés? Est-ce que cet agenda va être accéléré? Est-ce que ça va être remis très rapidement à l'agenda du Conseil? Est-ce qu'il va y avoir d'autres réunions dans les prochaines semaines à ce sujet-là?
Léo, merci beaucoup. Comme je dis en avance, j'ai plus d'informations sur ce sujet-là, aussi pas concernant l'agenda, mais quand j'ai plus d'informations, je peux revenir vers toi avec plus de détails.
Okay, merci. Any more questions on refugee aspects of the crisis in Ukraine and the war in Ukraine? It seems so. Okay, Dmitro, your microphone is open, or should be open now.
My question is about Ukraine, but on legal nature. Commission rightly defined Russian aggression as a brutal violation of international law. My question is, can this definition to be changed a little bit and defined like international military crime as it's related to the mass killing of the innocent people and absolutely unprovoked, with all the related consequences of a legal nature. If a commission can initiate such investigation itself or apply for international organizations to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dmitro. Of course, I mean, these are all relevant questions, and we all are asking these questions ourselves, and we are already on it. But you would understand that the war started now. The aggression against Ukraine started in full yesterday. So there are more important things to deal with in immediate response to this aggression, to stop it. And of course, this will be part of the diplomatic and legal track to deal with the aftermath of this unprecedented, brutal aggression, violent, barbaric act driven by Kremlin and the political leadership there. So there will be consequences. The European Union was politically very, very clear from top levels of the leadership of institutions and member states that Putin and the political leadership will be taken to account for all the things they did against Ukraine and what they are doing against the Ukrainian people who are being aggressively attacked and killed, and their country is being destroyed. So for all these, there will be consequences, and maybe this is also one of the questions that will be then more appropriate to be raised after the FAC and in the days to come. But of course, there cannot be impunity. The recent history has shown that everyone who was participating in committing war crimes will be eventually brought to justice. But we are at the start of these very dramatic events, so let's also the work on the side of the European Union and legal institutions proceed accordingly. Okay, do we still have questions on refugee aspects of the crisis so that we can let Anita go? If you keep your hands up, that means that you have them. Okay, Alain.
Oui, bonjour. Tu m'entends, Peter? Vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Oui, bonjour. J'ai cru comprendre que c'était une question pour Anita qui est en backup de Balázs aujourd'hui. Le Conseil fédéral vient de présenter ce matin sa stratégie pour relancer des discussions avec l'Union européenne après son rejet de l'accord cadre. Il propose non plus une approche horizontale, comme ce qui était dans le cadre précédent, mais une approche verticale, une approche sectorielle. Voilà l'idée un petit peu de base, avec de nouvelles possibilités pour des accords bilatéraux sur l'électricité ou la sécurité alimentaire, par exemple. Je voudrais savoir quelle est la réaction de la Commission européenne à cette proposition. Le Conseil fédéral dit qu'il va tenir des pourparlers bientôt avec la Commission. Est-ce que c'est le cas? Est-ce qu'un rendez-vous a déjà été agendé? Merci.
Alain, tout d'abord, nous devons recevoir une proposition formelle de nos homologues suisses par voie officielle, puis l'analyser avant de formuler des commentaires publics.
Merci, c'était très clair. La question suivante, Liboreiro from Euronews. Sorry, don't know if it's first name or surname.
Hi, Peter, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
I need to ask about the sanctions, but I need to do it now because it's more political. So I've seen that already there's criticism that this new package of sanctions doesn't go far enough, that it will fail to inflict immediate pain and will be felt more in the medium and long term rather than immediately and now short term. And I also seen that some EU leaders already talk about a third package of sanctions, which gives the impression that yesterday's work was left unfinished and incomplete. So what do you have to say about this criticism, and what can we expect for the EU in this new package of sanctions? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Well, always when the European Union makes a decision, and it's not necessarily only related to sanctions, there is always criticism that it's too little, too late, or it's not too ambitious, or it's accompanied by divisions, etc., etc. But what is important to bear in mind that what the leaders agreed to yesterday was an unprecedented package of sanctions. This is the harshest set of sanctions we were able to agree on as European Union by unanimity ever. And we did it fast, and we did it in absolute unity. And this is what we were saying already in the run-up to the unfortunate events to yesterday. If the diplomatic track fails, if Russia decides to embark on further aggression against Ukraine, there will be massive consequences, and they will come fast. First step is taking the decisions. Second step is to implement the decisions. Then we can discuss whether it's effective or not, but this is what the member states agreed as a collective response by the European Union, backed up or complemented by similar decisions by a number of countries from all around the world introducing either the same sanctions or similar sanctions or complementary sanctions. So we can discuss the effectiveness or the effects and impact of these sanctions in the days to come when they start to bite. Of course, especially economic, financial sanctions, they take time, but we aim at crippling the ability of the regime in Kremlin to finance this brutal, aggressive war. And we are convinced, this is the unanimous assessment of all the 27 member states, that the package agreed yesterday or last night will achieve this. We will limit significantly the ability of the Russian regime to finance this aggression. By the way, part of the sanctions are also targeted at Belarusian leadership, because Belarus is a collaborant in this brazen aggression against Ukraine, and they will be targeted as well. When it comes to the sequencing of packages, we have always said we have massive package prepared, and we will be applying this package in a progressive way, responding to concrete actions by Russia, and we are not at the end. Okay, follow-up question, peut-être Camille Cerise.
Les sanctions, je voulais juste savoir où en était la délégation de l'UE, si elle était toujours à Kiev ou si depuis elle avait été bougée par exemple à Lviv ou ailleurs dans le pays. Merci.
Nous sommes en train de réarranger l'opération et la présence de notre délégation en Ukraine à la base de le développement. Vous avez vu que les développements sont très dramatiques dans l'Ukraine. Donc, nous suivons la situation et nous adaptons nos opérations, et nos actions et notre présence en Ukraine à cette condition. À cause de la sécurité, je ne veux pas partager plus de détails. And finally, Catherine.
Hi, Peter. You pay tribute to journalists working in Ukraine at this moment, and there are. I've seen that, for example, the journalists from Kyiv Independent are still there, still reporting, and they're looking for financial support. And I'm just wondering, will there be funds to help journalists carry out their work there? They're in very difficult circumstances. And Macron said yesterday that part of this fight will be the fight against disinformation. Is it imperative that the EU provides support to those working on the ground?
Thank you very much, Catherine. I will let Anna answer the part on the support to Ukrainian journalists specifically, but since you raised the issue of disinformation, well, we will not be fighting disinformation. We are already fighting disinformation. Ukraine is under attack by the brutal force unleashed by by the Russian military, but also Ukraine is and has been for years under attack of Russian disinformation. This attack is also directed against the European Union, and we've seen it in the last few weeks how this disinformation front actually gathered on pace and intensity. So this is one of the threats we are dealing with and we are trying to face off as well. So of course, but this is a fight that we are fighting jointly with the Ukrainians. They do it, we do it, individual member states are doing it, we do it together and we coordinate on this. So in this context, I would maybe also invite you on behalf of your own media and outlets to contribute to these efforts, because we are being flooded now with disinformation from the top levels of the Russian leadership. Putin is not only commander-in-chief, but he is also chief of misinformation. And this is being spread by his entourage as well. So we need to fight it. The European Union does it through the Stratcom in the EAS. Colleagues are working on it. They are publishing regularly on the website www.eu-disinfo.eu. I invite you to consult this website, because there we are publishing regularly updates about the ongoing narratives and campaigns and trends on this information. And indeed, this is something to which we are exposed already for some time, and these attacks are increasing together with the cyber attacks, by the way. Anna, go ahead.
Thanks so much for the question, Catherine. So indeed, as Peter said, there's a lot of work, of course, when it comes to tackling disinformation. Traditionally, of course, the European Union supports very much media and civil society. And what I can tell you, Catherine, is that in the framework of the annual action plan for 2021 of Ukraine, we do actually foresee an action that's worth indicatively 15 million euro to support indeed the strengthening of the sustainability of independent media, including trying to support in the conflict affected areas. And of course there's a lot also that has to do with supporting Ukraine in terms of meeting the standards the standards, the European standards when it comes to media regulation and other. So we do actually foresee support for media colleagues in Ukraine.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, I see one more question, possibly the last one, which just disappeared from David. Okay, David Price.
Thank you, Peter. It's not for Anna, but it's a general question. Can you define for us how the EU considers the war aims of Russia in this conflict before you can actually put on sanctions or react in any way? You need to have a clear idea what the war aims are. And obviously these have been discussed. Can you say a bit more about the war aims? I have a second question. There are a number of reports that there are a number of bio-warfare labs in Ukraine which were established in collaboration with a major NATO member. And I wonder whether this has been discussed, I assume it has been discussed with NATO. And can you say a little bit more whether these a dozen or so bio-warfare labs exist? Obviously, this would be a major concern to Russia if they did exist. Thank you.
Thank you, David. On the last one, you answered yourself. I mean, we are not NATO, we are not military organization. We deal with other things. But on the war aims, you would need to ask Putin. I mean, no one knows what is his aim, because this is so irrational, so unjustified, so incomprehensible that it's very difficult to see what's the aim. I mean, we can see where it goes. Basically, he wants to destroy Ukraine. He wants to take the independence from Ukraine. He wants to inflict damage and suffering on Ukrainian people. This is absolutely inhuman. This is uncivilized. It doesn't belong to Europe of 21st century. But he never declared his overall and ultimate aim. He is always saying something about preventing genocide, which is total nonsense, because he is committing one, or he is about to commit one. He's talking about denazifying Ukraine, but he behaves like Nazis. So this is all in his head. So this is not really for us to try to analyze. We are prepared for all scenarios, of course, and our sanctions are reacting to concrete actions, to concrete violations of international law, to concrete violations of territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, etc. So this is really something that you would need to ask the Russian side. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Thanks, Peter. Alexandra Brzozowski, Directive. I have a question on the EU aid packages for Ukraine and financial assistance in general. Considering that there is the possibility that in a couple of days there might not be a pro-EU government in Kiev anymore, what are the plans in this case to support the country, and or will the current assistance be frozen? What are the plans on that? Thank you.
I called Anna before you said the magic word if, so we don't speculate on what if scenarios. Our current efforts are really on trying to prevent the worst and trying to support Ukraine and to push Russia to stopping this unjustified illegal aggression against a sovereign country. Overall, on our financial support, we are supporting legitimate governments who are elected in free and fair elections when it comes to our neighborhood. So I will not go into speculations what happens if, because this is the situation nowadays is about helping and supporting Ukraine to prevent the worst case scenarios from unfolding. I've seen one more hand in the room. Yeah, go ahead. Two more hands.
Thank you. Follow up to my colleague. This is without the magic word if. Are there any plans in case of an overthrow of the government?
Of course, we have had contingency planning since the start of the crisis triggered by Russia, and we are prepared for any scenario. So we have planning for all the scenarios. But as I said, the priority is to prevent the worst case scenario, and we are focused on dealing with the current situation to really stop the Russian aggression and to support the Ukraine so that the country can maintain its independence and democracy and the progress which was achieved in this country, and which is the main reason why Putin's regime decided to attack this country. Yeah, go ahead, you have a question.
Hi, this is Monica from the New York Times. I think this is a question for Anna. I saw that Moldova activated the civil protection mechanism last night. Could you give any more details on the support that the EU is providing for Moldova?
Very gladly to our colleague that's covering for Balázs and that's has much more insight of the civil protection mechanism that indeed was activated. Thanks so much.
In the meantime, until Anita comes, I will just refer you also to the information issued yesterday about the call between President of the Commission and her partner in Moldova, because Moldova is, of course, one of our important neighbors and partners, and we are committed to continue supporting Moldova very, very strongly. And the same goes for Georgia, by the way. Anita.
Thank you so much. Good to be back now in filling in Balázs' big shoes, I would like to say. Indeed, we confirmed that last night Moldova has activated the EU civil protection mechanism and has asked for assistance for the management of migration. And if you are interested, and allow me to tell you more also on the Ukrainian government's request also for civil protection assistance, where the EU civil protection mechanism is now including offers from 12 countries. And also Commissioner Lenarčič has spoken to the ministers of Romania, Poland, Hungary and Moldova to discuss how the EU can help them with the protection of Ukrainian people.
Follow up?
Yeah, so just in practical terms, how is this support going to look like? For Moldova, and I guess if you have details on, Poland and Hungary, that would be great as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, as said before, this is a civilian mechanism, and Moldova has asked for the assistance of managing the migration. We are now in touch with the national authorities of the member states that are ready to provide assistance needed. So I do not have more information at this point. This was activated last night.
Thank you very much. Looking at interaction at the room, I think we have a consensus that we should take one last question and then give the space to the technical briefing. So we go to Finbar from on interaction.
Thanks, Peter. I'm not sure if this is better for the technical briefing or not, but Taiwan has said this morning that it's going to join the sanctions, to join in its, quote, democratic countries in sanctioning Russia. I was wondering, has the EU been working with Taipei in sort of trying to coordinate a response on this, as it has been with other allies like, the UK, US, Canada, Australia? What's been the level of contact with the Taiwanese? Thanks very much.
Okay, I will invite Nabila to give you something about our dealings with Taiwan. Overall, I can only repeat that all these efforts have been done in close coordination and cooperation with partner countries.
Hi, thanks Finbar for your question. Taiwan, as other like-minded partner, has expressed strong support to Ukraine and condemned Russia's use of force and announced it will impose sanctions. At this point, we are working with all like-minded partners, as Peter said, and this is what I can say at this point.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We will need few minutes to rearrange a little bit the press room so you can stay in. And for those of you connected via Interactio, we should be resuming off the record, of course, technical briefing in few minutes. So see you in a bit. Bye.